Alright, so now in this video I'm going to show you one interesting web application that I have built using Kotlin, Jetpack Compose and a Kobweb framework. If you haven't watched a video that I have recently made about building a web application with Kotlin, then be sure to check out that video first, since there I have showcased everything you need to know to actually correctly set up the environment to build your first web application. And also, before I go through this code and explain you how this web application was built, first let me show you how it looks like and works. Now the first thing you're going to notice here is that this web application is actually deployed on a real server. So I'm using here a domain which can be accessed by anyone. It's called prettyco.onrender.com, so it's a free domain. Anyhow, you can also just check this domain and see this application by yourself. Now, as inspiration for this actual application, I have used the website which is called carbon.now.sh. So it's basically the same thing, only it has a lot more different themes to choose from. And you can basically paste your code right there, apply a certain theme, and then export that as an image that you can use to share on social media with other people. Now, in this case, my own application here is quite simplified. So we have only one theme that we can apply to our code. I have specified for now only 4 different background colors that we can use here as a background of our editor. There you go. And we can also modify 3 different properties of our editor as well. The first one is the font size. As you can see, we can increase or decrease the actual font size. I have specified the maximum value here to be 30, but we can change that, for example, to 20, which is a default value. We can also change the line height of this code, and we can change and modify the padding value, which will increase or decrease the actual background color of our editor. Okay, there you go. So that's how it works. And after we paste our code right here, we can apply the colors to apply the theme color to our actual code, and then we can press export to export that as a PNG image that we can use to share with all other people around the internet. And this is how that image actually looks like at the moment. We can also check out some more information about this file, and you will see that this PNG image is quite large. So in this case, 3036 by 2016. So it's a high quality image, and it will not get pixelated until you zoom in here quite a bit. There you go. Also, we can use this handler down below to change the width and height of this editor as well. So it's up to you how you want to increase that and export the image. And there you go. So that's how this simple web application looks like. Now let's go back to our code, and I'm going to show you first what kind of libraries I have used to actually deploy this application. So first I'm going to open up the Gradle build file, of course. And if you're not familiar with this Gradle build file, then I'm going to repeat myself once again, so be sure to watch that video that I have already made that will teach you how to set up the environment to create your own web applications. And first I'm going to start with the top. So this website contains just a simple description, so I have specified that by myself. Also, I have specified a couple of different scripts and styles that our web page will have. So the first 2 scripts that I have used are related to Google Analytics. So I have also used a Google Analytics on my website to check out and track how many users are actually visiting this website. So you can also create your own Google Analytics account and just paste those 2 links, or this link and this gtag.js. So that JS file needs to be located in this resource directory. There you go, in this public directory actually. The next thing here, we have one script that I have also downloaded, and that script is called DOM to image, or a document object model to image. So this is actually a third-party library that I'm using to export that image from my web application as a PNG file. Okay, so I haven't made that logic by myself, so I'm using a third-party library. And let me just open that library up. So DOM to image, you can also check that on GitHub as well. Down below you can see all different kind of usage documentation on how to use this library. I'm going to show you later in the code how I have implemented this JS into my Kotlin code. Anyhow, one thing that you should know here is that you need to download that JS from this source directory. So just download this dump to image JS, and you need to paste that in your public resource directory. And then from there, inside your Gradle build file, you need to link that same script right here. Also, next we have here a FileSaver script, which actually is a part of this dump to image library. So this library right here depends on this FileSaver, and this FileSaver is also one third-party library that you can use to actually save that image as a PNG. So you can also check this FileSaver JS source and just download this JS and paste into your own project. Next here we have a Highligh JS, so that's also one library that allows us to actually highlight our code from here. So let me just copy here, for example, this home page composable, and I'm going to paste that right here. I can also modify this window to fit my my code. There we go. We can also decrease that width a little bit, and now I can click apply the colors to apply those colors, or actually highlight our code with the specified theme that I have declared in my project. So at the moment, as I already mentioned, I'm using only one theme, which is why I can see only those bluish colors. Anyhow, that highlighting library is called the Highligh JS, so you can check this official website, so highlighjs.org. And in this specific link, we can also check out different kind of themes that we can use with this library. So at this point, I'm using this light fair theme. As you can see, we can just scroll down below to check how it looks like on different languages. So we have a Java, JSON, and here is a Kotlin. So that's how it looks like with a Kotlin. And that light fair is also specified here as a CSS resource. Okay, so be sure to just download this light fair theme. You can access that theme actually on their GitHub profile. So let me just try to type here Highligh JS GitHub. You can open up that JS on a GitHub, and there you need to search for themes. And from here you can open up the source directory, then styles, and there you're going to find all different kind of CSS theme styles that you can use to actually copy and paste to your own Kotlin project. In this case, I have pasted this light fair CSS, so there it is. That's how it looks like. So just be sure to paste that specific theme or any other theme that you want to use with your project. And the last script and link or a CSS file that I'm using is for a Bootstrap. So many of you may already be familiar with this Bootstrap framework. It's just basically a framework that allows you to customize your components, your HTML components, in a different styles. So you can also check out these examples or the actual documentation to check out what kind of elements you can customize. So you can basically customize everything there is, so buttons, input fields, and so on and so on. In our specific scenario, I have just customized those input fields and those buttons, as well as this drop down as well. And if you want to implement this Bootstrap to your code, you just need to go to this introduction quick start guide, and from there down below you have those two links. So this link and the script, so just paste those two. As you can see, Bootstrap min JS and this Bootstrap min CSS. So I have just pasted this CSS and this JS in my Gradle build file right here, and with those I can use those Bootstrap classes on my own components to customize their styles. And I'm going to show you how that looks like within the code. So now that you have been introduced with all different kind of third-party libraries that we are using in our project, and now let's quickly go through our project and I can show you how this actual application was made. Also, this whole project will be available as an open source project on my GitHub profile, so you can just check that out and see this code by yourself. Anyhow, here we have just a simple home page. In that home page we have this image which represents our logo, so this one. And below that we have, of course, our editor. And below our editor we have also a footer which just displays a simple link that when clicked will lead us to my own YouTube channel. Okay, so there you go. Alright, let's go back to our code. So that's how it looks like. It will open up a link in a new tab. That's our footer. The next thing, here I have also created one resource object which just points to this specific logo image, and also I have created this ID object that points to some different IDs that we are using in our project as well. Let me just show you here. Also here we have one or actually two different model classes. So the first model class is used to create and handle all our different background colors of our editor. And the second one is used for our default website colors that I'm using. So here in this case I'm only using red, yellow and green for those three circles of our editor. Okay, now let's close that. Let's open up this editor composable function or Kotlin file. And this editor contains that actual code for our editor. So here we have a couple of different properties that we are using to actually apply certain values to our editor, like the padding, the font size, line height, editor theme. Down below we have this controls view composable function, which I'm going to show you in a moment. So that composable function takes those actual values, and it contains a couple of different lambdas that we are using to implement the logic, what to do when a user tries to change those values on our website. So whenever a user tries to increase those values, we are just updating those properties here and pointing them back to our actual controls view composable function. Now, below that, we also have one column, editor header and editor body. So after those control views here, we have the editor header and the editor body. So the editor header just contains those three boxes, so red, yellow and green, those three circles. So it's quite simple. And below that, we have this editor body, which contains a couple of different composable functions that are needed to highlight our code with that Highligh JS library. So to be able to highlight those actual lines of code in our editor, we need to put this actual code within this pre-HTML element, okay? And this pre-HTML element needs to have this code HTML element, and then within this code we need to actually add our text, which we are highlighting with that Highligh JS library. So that's the rules that you need to follow. Also, you can check out a documentation of that Highligh JS library to see what rules you need to follow in order to use this actual library. So basically, you need to put your actual code within this pre-code HTML elements. And here, as you can see, let me just scroll all the way here so we can see what we have. So, okay, so in this code block, or this code HTML element, we need to add a class which is called a language Kotlin in this case, since we are highlighting that Kotlin language or Kotlin code. If you're using other different language, then you need to specify a proper language string here as a class of your code. Down below, I'm also overriding on-paste functionality of this editor. So let me just try to actually remove or comment out this part of the code so I can show you why this is so important for my web application. So I'm going to also launch this on a local server actually. And I'm going to also just copy, for example, this home page once again. So without this code right here, if I try to paste the code that I have just copied, I'm not going to just paste the actual code, I'm going to paste also the actual style of that editor from which we have just copied that code. So now if I select all of that and press Ctrl V, then I'm going to paste all of that style from my IntelliJ IDE, okay? And that's why here I actually need this code to prevent that default style that I'm pasting and copying from my IntelliJ IDE in this case. And here I'm adding the logic to execute or actually insert this HTML or this code manually by myself. And here, as you can see, I'm also applying the font size and the line height as well, so that's how it looks like. Anyhow, that will be all about this editor. Now let's open up this controls view so we can see how that looks like. So the first thing you're going to see here is that we are using a simple grid composable function, which is eventually used to make our components fully responsive. So in this case, as you can see here, we have 3 different columns. But if I try to increase or actually use this website on a smaller devices, then this simple grid will specify those elements in 2 columns instead. Okay, so that's how it works. Now below this or inside this simple grid we have a couple of different div elements, and each div element here contains one input field. So we have 3 different input fields for a font size, for a line height, and for padding. Now you will notice here that I have specified some string values for the class names, and those class names are actually used from a Bootstrap library. So if I, for example, remove one of those classes from one of those input fields, for example, I'm going to remove now this class names from this div and the class names from this input field. So if I remove that and I relaunch this application, you will see that this first input field will have its default style, which does look quite awful. And that's why I have decided to use that Bootstrap third-party library or framework to customize my elements to look more beautiful. And there we go. So that's how our input field in this label looks like in a default style, which is why with basically 2 lines of code we can apply those beautiful styles quite easily. Okay, and each and every input field contains those classes. Now you can check out the official documentation for a Bootstrap to see some more information about how you can use different kind of components and forms, and what kind of classes you actually need to use to apply those styles. You can also check here the documentation for different kind of components, for example buttons. Down below you can check out and see different kind of variations of those buttons, so button primary, secondary, success, danger, and so on and so on. Be sure to check that out by yourself. Anyhow, below those input fields we have also a drop down. So a drop down is also a composable function that displays all of those editor themes inside a list or a drop down, right? So that's how it looks like. Also, those elements right here contains same classes that we have just seen, like a button, button light, and so on and so on. So we are using also the style from a Bootstrap to stylize our drop down. And below this drop down we have 2 buttons. So the first button is for applying those colors. And in order to apply those colors to this text right here, we need to execute this code, or this JS code, which is called HLJS.highlightAll. So that's the function which I have seen in that documentation about the Highligh JS, and it allows us to basically just apply that custom style of our theme that we have specified right here to the code that is located within that pre-code block. Okay, so let me just find that where it is. Okay, so here it is in our editor Kotlin file. So if you execute this function down below to trigger this JS function HighlightAll, then that style or a custom theme that we have specified, lightfair, will be used to style all the text which is inside this pre-code block. Okay, so that's how that library actually works, and that's how we are able to highlight our code with that same theme. Finally, here we have also an export button, which triggers one function which is called a save image. And that save image function is located down below. So in this case, as you can see, I'm not using a Kotlin code to actually execute and use this library, because this specific library, DOM2Image, is actually not a multi-platform library. So it's a JS library, which is why here from the Kotlin code, I can just use this JS block to execute a raw JS code to trigger the logic of this library. Now in this case also you can check the documentation of that same library to see how to use that to save that image. Anyhow, here as you can see, I'm basically using this var node to create one variable that will hold our element with the ID of editor. And that editor ID is actually, let me just locate that. So as you can see, our editor basically represents the whole editor, which contains the header and the body, which is this whole thing right here. And once we locate that document object model, then we can use that same model down below, or that variable, to specify which node we want to export to image. So in this case, I'm using this save as function, and here I have just hard-coded this name of that image that will be saved. Also, you can see that here I have specified a custom width and height for this node to be 4 times larger, which is why we are getting that huge image in a huge resolution. I'm also using here a transform scale 4. So that's basically the JS code that will allow us to save our file as a PNG image once we capture that node on our page. And basically that's everything there is for this simple web application. So now, of course, I'm using only one theme, but of course you can try and use some other different themes that you have seen here with Highligh JS. So there are many different themes that we can use from this library, but also when you're using those themes, you need to make sure that you're using the correct background color as well, or otherwise this theme will not look that good as it looks like in this documentation right there. And once again, you can access this this web application of mine on this prettyco on render.com free domain. So be sure to check that out. So that will be all for this video. Be sure to comment down below and let me know what you think about this simple web application that I have just made. And of course, be sure to like this video, but only if you find it helpful. For this video, that will be all.